name's Adam Goulding from Manchester, if you need to contact me separately. Okay, thank you very much, Andrew.
All right, thanks very much for coming along. Thanks very much for inviting me to speak. I'm going to talk about a research project that I've been involved with a number of people. The names are up there, but I'm conscious it might be a little bit too small to see the names. It's a project that is trying to explore the meaning of neighbourhood for people who are living with dementia. I'm going to talk for about 25 minutes, and then I'm happy to field any questions, or if you want to have a wider discussion about some of the issues that I raised, then we can do that. The other thing I would say is I think this is the first sort of public outing of some of the materials and the data and analysis that I'm going to present to you. So I'm also quite interested in the opportunity to present some of what we're finding out and perhaps get some feedback from you about whether it resonates with your experiences or whether there's some sort of learning that is coming from what we're doing. As with many of these sorts of presentations, I need to start by acknowledging our funders who provided us with 5 years' worth of funding. So they're the Economic Social Research Council and the National Institute for Health Research. It's a project that's running from 2014 to 2019, so we are round about midway through. It is a much larger programme of work than what I'm going to talk about. So there are 8 different sorts of projects taking place, primarily in the United Kingdom. There's a whole range of organisations, not just universities involved. And the overall, what we call principal investigator is John Keady, who some of you might know is based at the University of Manchester. What I'm going to talk about is a particular project that I'm involved in here in Manchester and Salford. It's a project about places that I think are really taken for granted, but also places that are, I think, incredibly important for people's day-to-day lives and how we get by. They're places that we call neighbourhoods. Now, I don't want to have a lengthy academic debate about what constitutes a neighbourhood. Rather, I'm interested in what do those local spaces and places, the areas around our home and perhaps a little bit further afield, mean to us. And what does it mean in the context of people who are living with dementia? So the kinds of questions that we're interested in is how do people who are living with dementia understand their local neighbourhoods or their local environments? How might the local environment impact on people's lives? And also, how can the local environment support people who are affected by or who are living with dementia? And by that we mean both people who are living with a diagnosis themselves and their care partners and their wider family and friends, and also wider members of the community. We know that there has been loads of work done on the importance of neighbourhood in a dementia context. And I think a lot of that work is really good, but I think a lot of it is focused on aspects of sort of design. You know, how can we somehow modify the built environment so that they're somehow more appropriate for an ageing population, and so they're more appropriate for a population living with dementia. And I think that's really worthwhile work, but I think in the research team we take a different approach to what local place is about. Because neighbourhoods aren't just physical locations, they're not just shops and benches and parks, but they're actually made up of a whole range of other sorts of activities and phenomena and things. You know, they're made up of people, they're made up of relationships. Neighbourhoods are about memories. You know, neighbourhoods are about places where we live our lives. Neighbourhoods are the things that are kind of there while we're busy getting on with other things in our life. And so what we're really trying to understand is how these sorts of places in these images here matter to people. So, the project itself is international in scope, so we are undertaking fieldwork, we're undertaking data collection here in Greater Manchester, where I'm the local lead with a researcher called Sarah Campbell. We are also undertaking the work in Scotland across the Forth Valley, so that stretches from Edinburgh to Glasgow. We are undertaking work in Sweden in a place called Linköping, and there's also a parallel project taking place in Ontario in Canada. The bulk of my discussion and the comments, in fact all of my discussion, is actually going to focus on what we are learning from Greater Manchester. The work is longitudinal in design. In other words, we are following people through time. So we are visiting people every so often to understand a little bit more about their life and also try to understand how their lives have changed and also the places where they live have changed. broadly, what we're trying to understand is how, as you live with dementia, your life will change, and as you live with someone who has dementia, your life will also change, but also that environment is changing as well. We're doing a range of what we are groundly calling qualitatively driven mixed methods. We are doing participatory network maps, we're doing home tours, and we're doing walking interviews. We start from the basic premise that the neighbourhood is more than just the built environment. And so we're trying to understand what aspects of people's social neighbourhood or people's social communities matter just as much as their physical location, and also trying to get at some idea of people's histories and longer term attachments to the places where they live. And by longer term attachment, that could be people who have lived in the same place for 30, 40 years, or it could be people who have lived in a house for 6 months. We're more interested in what it means to live in a particular location. So we do this first of all by asking people to take us on a walk. As imaged down the bottom of me, going for a walk with one of our participants. We ask people just to walk us around where they live. People can choose to go wherever they want. We take a camera with us, we take a microphone and a recording device, and we go and have a look at what's going on. And the idea is that people present to us some aspects of the places where they're living. Of course, for some people, walking can be challenging, and so we've also gone on drives with people, and other people who haven't been able to do that very much, we've sat at home and talked in their living room. The other thing that we're really interested in is people's, what we call social networks, people's wider community or relationships. And so we have a community mapping activity that we've carried out both for people living with dementia and also a care partner, in which we just ask people to tell us who they know. And rather than run through a long survey or a list of different names, which is not just tedious, but also I think an unrealistic way of thinking about all sorts of relationships, we ask people just to start talking about different people. We go with paper and pens, and the people we talk to can jot down or write down or draw out in some way a diagram or a visual representation, a map of who they know. And there's an example there. And then the other thing we do is a home tour, because we know that neighbourhoods do not start at the end of our garden gate or outside our front door. You know, the neighbourhood starts in a home. And so we also have conducted a filmed home tour where we've worked with people with dementia to take us on a tour of their house. We've filmed them, and they have shown us objects or rooms or different aspects of their home that they like. They've also talked about things that are more challenging and things that they'd like to change as well. We do all those activities twice so that we can start to understand some of the changes that go on in people's lives. We are doing this with, in Manchester at least, 28 people who are living with dementia, so they've taken part in these 3 methods, and 23 of their care partners as well. And so that all together on maths makes that about 51 people, and we know that about 47, 48 people are prepared to let us follow them and go back to them again, which we're really, really pleased with. We've been absolutely delighted with the enthusiasm that all our participants have shown for getting involved in this. I might need to think that some of that enthusiasm comes from the idea that this isn't your, it's not your run-of-the-mill research. It's not every day, I think, that you get to take a researcher out for a walk around where you live, that someone comes and wants to do a film tour of your house, and you get to do some mapping, about your kinds of relationships. Altogether, we have got 96 pieces of individual data, which our analysis has been based on. That's increasing, and it's going to go up again over the next few weeks. And I should say we've got similar amounts of data for Sweden and Scotland. So by the end we'll have we think a really rich amount of material about trying to understand what it is like to live with dementia. All the quotations here come from our participants who are living with a diagnosis of dementia. And I want to start really by talking a little bit about a group of people that we live intimately side by side but know everything about. They're our neighbours. It's often said that neighbours are the people who we know what sorts of clothes they wear when they're hanging on the line, but we often don't know their name. One of the things we found is that neighbours fulfil a really important function for everybody that we talk to. There's a quotation from Joanne, who talks about her good neighbours. Lots of people talked about good neighbours and bad neighbours. And when people ask Joanne what makes a good neighbour, she says it's the things that they do. They bring my bin out for me, up the steep side of their house. And they do that without, and do they do that by being asked? No, they do it voluntarily. They do it themselves voluntarily, and they mind our house when we go away. What I want to suggest is there is something fundamentally essential to these, what we call little acts of kindness, that allow people to get by on a day-to-day basis. One of the things we're trying to understand with the research is what kind of activities help someone living with dementia maintain a degree of independence. All our participants are living in their own home, and we're looking at what sorts of things help. And of course, there's all sorts of issues around formal service provision, but so too are all these informal, everyday, incidental activities. And Lisa, she took us on a walk, and on the walk she took us to the butcher, and she tells us that the butcher makes his own sausages, and he makes them on a Wednesday, and so it's actually on Wednesday that Lisa tends to go to see her butcher. And she talks about how the butcher always asks how are your grandchildren. So he's someone that Lisa will have a chat with. And she says, and I'll pop in there even if I don't need anything. And Lisa talked about how actually she will pop into the butcher on her own. And she will do this on a regular basis. And the important thing is not whether the butcher is making decent sausages or not. The important thing is whether the butcher is asking after Lisa's grandchildren. And it is this tiny, seemingly mundane activities that lots of people do that is so important. And I think one of the reasons these activities are so important is because they're offering what we're calling latent support. In other words, support that's there, but people don't rely on all the time. Support that isn't maybe at the forefront of people's mind when we think who can help. Support that doesn't cost very much. And also support that's not really spoken about. Joanne hasn't got any agreement with her neighbour that they're going to wheel her bin up and down. Just that she's got no agreement with them that they're going to park their car in her driveway when they go on holiday. Lisa hasn't got any agreement that the butcher will ask who her grandchildren are every week. Instead, it is about these often unrecognised but so important activities. But you can also see that there are, at times, occasions when this sort of support can really come to the fore and help. So this is Rita. Rita lives in a block of flats. So when she talks about tenants, she talks about her neighbours in this block of flats. None of her neighbours know that Rita has dementia. But she talks about how all the other tenants in the flats look after each other and keep an eye out for each other. And she recalled a story about how it was one particular tenant, a tenant called Danny, who actually shouted at her one day. And Rita's husband, her carer, chipped in and said, yeah, Danny stopped Rita from going out because he could see that there was something wrong. And so he just started shouting. But they all look out for each other, so it's more of a safety net. And when we think about what
I'm Gordon from Manchester if you need to contact me separately. Okay, thank you very much, Andy.
All right, thanks very much for coming along. Thanks very much for inviting me to speak. I'm going to talk about a research project that I've been involved with a number of people. The names are up there, but I'm conscious it might be a little bit too small to see the names. It's a project that is trying to explore the meaning of neighbourhood for people who are living with dementia. I'm going to talk for about 25 minutes, and then I'm happy to field any questions, or if you want to have a wider discussion about some of the issues that I raised, then we can do that. The other thing I would say is I think this is the first sort of public outing of some of the materials on the data analysis that I'm going to present to you. So I'm also quite interested in the opportunity to present some of what we're finding out and perhaps get some feedback from you about whether it resonates with your experiences or whether there's some sort of learning that is coming from what we're doing. As with many of these sorts of presentations, I need to start by acknowledging our funders who've provided us with 5 years' worth of funding. So they're the Economic Social Research Council and the National Institute for Health Research. It's a project that's running from 2014 to 2019, so we are round about midway through. It is a much larger programme of work than what I'm going to talk about. So there are 8 different sorts of projects taking place primarily in the United Kingdom. There's a whole range of organisations, not just universities, involved. And the overall, what we call principal investigator is John Keevy, who some of you might know is based at the University of Manchester. What I'm going to talk about is a particular project that I'm involved in here in Manchester and Salford. It's a project about places that I think are really taken for granted, but also places that are, I think, incredibly important for people's day-to-day lives and how we get by. They're places that we call neighbourhoods. Now, I don't want to have a lengthy academic debate about what constitutes a neighbourhood. Rather, I'm interested in what do those local spaces and places, the areas around our home and perhaps a little bit further afield, mean to us. And what does it mean in the context of people who are living with dementia? So the kinds of questions that we're interested in is how do people who are living with dementia understand their local neighbourhoods or their local environments? How might the local environment impact on people's lives? And also, how can the local environment support people who are affected by or who are living with dementia? And by that we mean both people who are living with a diagnosis themselves and their care partners and their wider family and friends, and also wider members of the community. We know that there has been loads of work done on the importance of neighbourhood in a dementia context. And I think a lot of that work is really good, but I think a lot of it is focused on aspects of sort of design. You know, how can we somehow modify the built environment so that they're somehow more appropriate for an ageing population, so they're more appropriate for a population living with dementia. And I think that's really worthwhile work, but I think in the research team we take a different approach to what local place is about. Because neighbourhoods aren't just physical locations, they're not just shops and benches and parks, but they're actually made up of a whole range of other sorts of activities and phenomena and things. You know, they're made up of people and they're made up of relationships. Neighbourhoods are about memories. You know, neighbourhoods are about places where we live our lives. Neighbourhoods are the things that are kind of there while we're busy getting on with other things in our life. And so what we're really trying to understand is how these sorts of places in these images here matter to people. So, the project itself is international in scope, so we are undertaking fieldwork, we're undertaking data collection here in Greater Manchester, where I'm the local lead with a researcher called Sarah Campbell. We are also undertaking the work in Scotland across the Forth Valley, so that stretches from Edinburgh to Glasgow. We are undertaking work in Sweden in a place called Linköping, and there's also a parallel project taking place in Ontario in Canada. The bulk of my discussion and the comments, in fact all of my discussion, is actually going to focus on what we are learning from Greater Manchester. The work is longitudinal in design. In other words, we are following people through time. So we are visiting people every so often to understand a little bit more about their life and also try to understand how their lives have changed and also the places where they live have changed. Broadly, what we're trying to understand is how, as you live with dementia, your life will change, and as you live with someone who has dementia, your life will also change, but also that environment is changing as well. We're doing a range of what we are roundly calling qualitatively driven mixed methods. We are doing participatory network maps, we're doing home tours, and we're doing walking interviews. We start from the basic premise that the neighbourhood is more than just the built environment. And so we are trying to understand what aspects of people's social neighbourhood or people's social communities matter just as much as their physical location, and also trying to get at some idea of people's histories and longer-term attachments to the places where they live. And by longer-term attachment, that could be people who have lived in the same place for 30, 40 years, or it could be people who have lived in a house for 6 months. We're more interested in what it means to live in a particular location. So we do this first of all by asking people to take us on a walk. As imaged down the bottom of me, going for a walk with one of our participants. We ask people just to walk us around where they live. People can choose to go wherever they want. We take a camera with us, we take a microphone and a recording device, and we go and have a look at what's going on. And the idea is that people present to us some aspects of the places where they're living. Of course, for some people, walking can be challenging, and so we've also gone on drives with people, and other people who haven't been able to do that very much, we've sat at home and talked in their living room. The other thing that we're really interested in is people's, what we call social networks, people's wider community or relationships. And so we have a community mapping activity that we've carried out both for people living with dementia and also a care partner, in which we just ask people to tell us who they know. And rather than running through a long survey or a list of different names, which is not just tedious, but also I think an unrealistic way of thinking about all sorts of relationships, we ask people just to start talking about different people. We go with paper and pens, and the people we talk to can jot down or write down or draw out in some way a diagram or a visual representation, a map of who they know. And there's an example there. And then the other thing we do is a home tour, because we know that neighbourhoods do not start at the end of our garden gate or outside our front door. You know, the neighbourhood starts in the home. And so we also have conducted a filmed home tour where we've worked with people with dementia to take us on a tour of their house. We've filmed them, and they have shown us objects or rooms or different aspects of their home that they like. They've also talked about things that are more challenging, things that they'd like to change as well. We do all those activities twice so that we can start to understand something of the changes that go on in people's lives. We are doing this with, in Manchester at least, 28 people who are living with dementia, so they've taken part in these 3 methods, and 23 of their care partners as well. And so that all together, the maths makes that about 51 people, and we know that about 47, 48 people are prepared to let us follow them and go back to them again, which we're really, really pleased about. We've been absolutely delighted with the enthusiasm that all, our participants have shown for getting involved in this. I might need to think that some of that enthusiasm comes from the idea that this isn't your, it's not your run-of-the-mill research. It's not every day, I think, that you get to take a researcher out for a walk around where you live, that someone comes and wants to do a film tour of your house, and you get to do some mapping, about your kinds of relationships. Altogether, we have got 96 pieces of individual data, which our analysis has been based on. That's increasing, and it's going to go up again over the next few weeks. And I should say we've got similar amounts of data for Sweden and Scotland. So by then we'll have we think, a really rich amount of material about trying to understand what it is like to live with dementia. All the quotations here come from our participants who are living with a diagnosis of dementia. And I want to start really by talking a little bit about a group of people that we live intimately side by side but know everything about. They're our neighbours. It's often said that neighbours are the people who we know what sorts of clothes they wear when they're hanging on the line, but we often don't know their name. One of the things we found is that neighbours fulfil a really important function for everybody that we talk to. There's a quotation from Joanne, who talks about her good neighbours. Lots of people talked about good neighbours and bad neighbours. And when we asked Joanne what makes a good neighbour, she says it's the things that they do. They bring my bin out for me up the steep side of their house. And they do that without, and do they do that by being asked? No, they do it voluntarily. They do it themselves voluntarily, and they mind our house when we go away. What I want to suggest is there is something fundamentally essential to these, what we call little acts of kindness, that allow people to get by on a day-to-day basis. One of the things we're trying to understand with the research is what kind of activities help someone living with dementia maintain a degree of independence. All our participants are living in their own home, and we're looking at what sorts of things help. And of course, there's all sorts of issues around formal service provision, but so too are all these informal, everyday, incidental activities. And Lisa, she took us on a walk, and on the walk she took us to the butcher, and she tells us that the butcher makes his own sausages, and he makes them on a Wednesday, and so it's actually on Wednesday that Lisa tends to go to see her butcher. And she talks about how the butcher always asks how are your grandchildren. So he's someone that Lisa will have a chat with. And she says, and I'll pop in there even if I don't need anything. And Lisa talks about how actually she will pop into the butcher on her own. And she will do this on a regular basis. And the important thing is not whether the butcher is making decent sausages or not. The important thing is whether the butcher is asking after Lisa's grandchildren. And it is this tiny seemingly mundane activities that lots of people do that is so important. And I think one of the reasons these activities are so important is because they're offering what we're calling latent support. In other words, support that's there, but people don't rely on all the time. Support that isn't maybe at the forefront of people's mind when we think, who can help? Support that doesn't cost very much. And also support that's not really spoken about. Joanne hasn't got any agreement with her neighbour that they're going to wheel her bin up and down, just like she's got no agreement with them that they're going to park their car in her driveway when they go on holiday. Lisa hasn't got any agreement that the butcher will ask who her grandchildren are every week. Instead, it is about these often unrecognised but so important activities. But you can also see that there are, at times, occasions when this sort of support can really come to the fore and help. So this is Rita. Rita lives in a block of flats. So when she talked about tenants, she talked about her neighbours in this block of flats. None of her neighbours know that Rita has dementia. But she talks about how all the other tenants in the flats look after each other and keep an eye out for each other. And she recalled a story about how it was one particular tenant, a tenant called Danny, who actually shouted at her one day. And Rita's husband, her carer, chipped in and said, yeah, Danny stopped Rita from going out because he could see that there was something wrong. And so he just started shouting. But they all look out for each other, so it's more of a safety net. And when we think about what